Clear prop.
US Air Force Chicksands in Bedfordshire. One of the 150 events or more where the Marlborough aerobatic team display in the course of a packed season.
Hold your handles right down, push the handles down. Push the handles right down.
They're to be the highlight of the annual Chicksands Friendship Fete, and a time to arrive overhead to begin their display at 16:30, which they do to the second.
As we now begin the final item of today's flying program, running in about an hour, the team is special acrobacia. Something over 200 miles an hour now, 2, 3, and 4 points. Joined the team some 3 years ago. Hitherto had been flying with the Air Force of the Sultan of Oman. In turn. In from the northeast, watches the aircraft run in for their final team manoeuvre. Speed comes on. Watch as they break across each other. The final 1986 Marlborough aerobatic team break.
Philip Meeson, founder of the Marlborough aerobatic team and 5 times British aerobatic champion.
I used to fly at a club called the Tiger Club at Red Hill. Because they've got stomps, which are old biplanes, but very aerobatic aircraft. And although I was obviously flying in quite modern jet aircraft in the Air Force, I really enjoyed aerobatics and the type of flying that the civilian clubs were doing. Unfortunately, at the end of my training, I got streamed to fly bomber airplanes. And if you look at my flying generally, that wasn't going to suit me. So the Air Force and I parted company, and I set about having my own airplane, the Pit Special, built. I went out to the States anyway on a little business that I'd formed, and saw the Pit Special out there, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, and discovered that you could buy the plans for $100. Now the old Stomp, which I'd been flying in competitions up to that time, was really getting a bit of an old mount, and not quite capable of doing the manoeuvres which I've now moved on to. So over the next 3 years, and this was in 1970, a great chap called Andrew Perkins built the first Pit Special to be built in the UK. And I still have that airplane. In fact, right now, it's out in Malaysia, just on its way to the Philippines to do some displays for the Marlborough team in the Philippines. The airplane was completed in 1974. I have to say, during that period, I didn't do much flying. I spent all my time working to pay for it to be built. That's why it took 3 years, because of the money situation, obviously. And since then, with the Pit Special, really, I've never looked back. Now, of course, the blow once I got the pit special was that in 1974 the price of fuel almost doubled overnight, and it became a very expensive aeroplane to fly. It does use, what, 12, 14 gallons per hour, a little bit more perhaps in aerobatics, and that was expensive, especially for the amount of practicing that I needed to do competition flying. So it was quite obvious that I had to find a sponsor. Getting sponsorship for a fairly minority sport anyway is a difficult task. Obviously major companies have people applying to them all the time. I really decided that I would be willing to start just to get people to understand what aerobatics could do for them on a fairly small scale.
Nigel Lamb, the team number 2.
I started applying to try and get into the Marlborough team in early 1980 to Philip Meeson, who was just... The team was just expanding. He had started off as a solo and then got another aeroplane and was doing a lot of solo shows. When I applied, he didn't feel that I was suitable for the team, and it took me a long time to get in. Well, I think that he felt I was too young. I was 23 when I was applying, and although I had quite a lot of hours, he felt that perhaps I had too many helicopter hours and that the type of flying wasn't particularly suitable. And I think perhaps he thought that as a 23-year-old or 24-year-old, which I would have been in 1981, perhaps I wouldn't have been responsible enough to go around the countryside doing a lot of solo shows and operating on my own. Anyway, I kept writing to him, and he kept turning me down because he didn't want me to risk coming over to England, not getting into the team, and then ruining my Air Force career. But I was pretty determined. So a week later, I just turned up in London and gave him a phone call. And I think he was quite impressed. Anyway, I spent 3 weeks in England and ultimately did a lot of flying. I did 1 hour duel with Philip, and then I did a lot of solo flying. And he just shoved me in an aeroplane and we started doing formation loops and things which I'd never done before. So anyway, it was very difficult, and I think I've probably fallen out of more formation loops and barrel rolls than anybody else. But I learned the hard way. Anyway, after 10 days he asked me if I'd guarantee to pass my British commercial. He was obviously satisfied with my flying. I said I would pass it, so he took a bit of a risk and said he'd take me on. So I spent another 10 days here in England, did quite a lot more flying, organised myself, went back, put my, resigned from the Air Force and studied like mad for my British commercial, came over in early 81, wrote all my commercials, got into the team, as it started off as a formation team. So I actually started off as the number 3 in the team in 1981, and then in 1982 I've led the duo side of it.
In Wales, the annual jazz festival, where one of the Marlborough team pilots is scheduled to fly a solo display. By this time, Nigel Lamb, flying the extra 230, is already en route from Booker, the team's operational base, to arrive overhead at 14:30. True to form, and despite bad weather and extremely poor visibility, he arrives overhead exactly on time. Pilots briefing RAF Chivener. Before any major air show, pilots attend a routine but comprehensive briefing. Subjects covered would include weather reports, flying restrictions of any kind, timing and safety.
1,200 feet, 101 feet, and the chimneys just to the south in the circuit area, which are 234 feet. I know the weather's not very good at the moment, but hang gliders a man anyway.
Ian Peacock and Dick Manning, the formation pair for the day, have arrived that morning at Chivener prior to the afternoon's display.
If you hear the words clear sky broadcast on the RT, that is the code word that there has been an accident of some sort. We will obviously let you know what is happening as soon as we can, but please keep RT chat on the frequencies to an absolute minimum if you hear the words clear sky.
Just one last word before we go. The PMC has asked me to tell you that anybody who's staying here until tomorrow, the beer is on in the marquee as soon as we finish flying. It'll be about 5:30. The barbecue starts at 8 o'clock. Have a good day. Thank you.
The newest member of the team, Dick Manning.
Well, Dick joined us for the 86 season after what he says was a successful career as a fighter pilot in the Air Force. And I must say, everywhere we go, to every RAF station that we go to, they confirm this. Anyway, he's our fighter ace, and again, a very good formation pilot. I think he was surprised at how difficult the pit special was to fly when he first came into the team. You know, these guys from the Red Arrows and the other jet jockeys, as they call themselves, they look at the pit special and, well, they think it might be an easy machine. But when they get in it, their feet go to pieces, because you don't have to use your feet in a jet, and I think they're very surprised indeed. Anyway, after not too much practice, Dick seems to have hacked it, so there's our fighter man being successful in the pit special too.
One of the noisiest afterburners in the world. 617 Squadron, the Dam Busters, Tornado.
Flying is like a drug in a way. The more you do it, the more you enjoy it. And not everyone enjoys it, but I was one of the lucky ones to really enjoy it. And I went to fighters. And it was quite a long, hard process, about 3 or 4 years training before I was actually sitting in the cockpit of my fighter. But it was worth it. And after 6 years, I'd amassed 1,100 hours on linings.
Dick came to us straight from the Omani Air Force, where he was flying Jaguars, a very fast and exciting airplane indeed, and he was doing a lot of formation flying. He took about 50 hours to get used to the pit special. Now his formation is immaculate, and also his solo flying is good too. So we're very pleased to see him in the team and doing more solo displays and enjoying them.
Training flight lightnings, practice base, John Orlington.
The weather that day at Chivener had caused much of the flying to be abandoned, and the Marlborough team decided to tailor their display to suit the weather conditions.
Limited amount of cloud base that we've got. But coming back round again, in formation, the Marlborough pair. And there's one of the Marlborough pits in dispersal shutting down.
We had to wait so long, I ran out of fuel.
If you can hear me, wave a hand. Thank you very much for putting on a good try in such grotty weather.
That's not good at all, as you can see. You're just so restricted, really. There's nothing you can do with a formation in weather like this. Nothing that doesn't get repetitive anyway.
Nice big burner flame. Don't burn our runway.
By this time, the weather had deteriorated further, and Ian Peacock, formation leader, decided that the team should proceed to RNAS Yeovilton immediately and stay overnight for the next day's display. The Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. The Lancaster, Hurricane and Spitfire, scheduled to fly after the Marlborough team at Chivenna, were later grounded by weather conditions and forced to stay overnight. They then flew direct to Yeovilton the next morning.
How much did it take? 18 gallons. 20 is a full tank.
And the winner of the Craig Crystal sprint for yesterday's form is Mr. John Smith. Good news for those who've got the courage to stay in this rough weather. The molasses is just about taken.
In rapidly decreasing visibility, the Marlborough duo headed direct for Yeovilton, 45 minutes flying time from Chivenna.
Particularly to the crews from abroad, from Germany, the Vikings and the Tornado, from France, the Super Étendard, the F-16 crew from the United States Air Force, and finally, after your 5-hour marathon trek from Italy, welcome to the Alpi Eagles. Thank you for coming. My name is John Lamb. I think I've met most of you, and I'm your display controller for the day. Over the next 20 minutes or so, I'd like to run through a full brief for the afternoon flying display. The brief will take the following format. Following a full Met brief, we will cover air traffic control, which will cover the airfield layout, the display line, safety services available, holding points, and incidentally the holding points are also on your handout, diversion airfields, communications, and finally emergencies.
Outside, they expect 25,000 spectators.
On landing, all aircraft declare by a left turn and taxi back to the south side of the airfield, either right the way around to the 27 threshold or to cross at PAR.
Lightning John, 27 15:05 taxi time, direct 15:10 and 15:15. That'll complete your display, and as we discussed, you then want to climb and land later. Your landing time then 15:25, and you'll be climbing overhead. When the shark's complete, you'll be cleared straight into land or round to land 27. Happy? Marlboroughs, Ian. From the static park, where you are now, no need for you to backtrack. Enter straight into the intersection and go after the triplane, please. BBMF now will be coming direct from Chivera, and therefore they will not be in your way at all. They'll come on time and display. That's fine. Okay.
3, 2, 1, mark. Time 11:53.
The weather hadn't deterred the crowd, and the pit specials were being prepared ready for their display time of 14:53.
Ladies and gentlemen, for an exciting display, and to work very, very hard to keep these structures together. Just trimming out there at the very last minute, you can hear them shouting instructions to each other.
Over lunch, the weather improved rapidly to give ideal conditions for display flying.
There they pull up, onto the vertical once again, and take it through a barrel roll. Down to pick up speed to just over 200 miles an hour, the maximum for this aircraft. Marlborough team has standardised this year on the S2A, the two-seat variant of the basic pit special design. As you can see, they're being flown single seat this afternoon with the forward cockpit fared over. Now the first of the Marlborough loops. Deceptive because things are certainly so much quieter and slower through this sequence, but taking around 6G there as they pull down now from the left, and they come to one of their most spectacular manoeuvres as there in Peacock, half rolls into the inverted, and watch as Richard Manning flies up to him to make the mirror.
Ian is probably one of the best formation pilots we've ever had in the team. He seems to have taken to it like a duck to water, and after a small amount of training with the team, probably 50 or 60 hours initial practice on the piston engine aircraft, we really couldn't tell the difference between Ian's flying and Phil Simmons the previous year.
When I first started flying the pits, it was easy to come to terms with the aircraft, but an enormous amount of work was required to settle down in the actual formation routine that we do. That was a good 5 or 6 weeks of solid flying every day with every available bit of light that we had. I can't remember how many hours we did, but I just remember being exhausted at the end of every day. But it's like anything, you know. When you started to learn to ride bicycles, it was a tremendous challenge, and it used to be quite frustrating at the beginning, always falling off and never getting it right. And then all of a sudden, something clicked, and you were able to keep your balance and totter off down the road. And I suppose, well, it's exactly the same as that. The parallel remains the same. I mean, I bet you haven't ridden a bike for 10 years. You could jump onto it in 2 minutes' time and be quite happy with it. It's the same in flying. Obviously, everyone who comes into the team is vetted very, very vigorously for obvious reasons. There's just not enough time or space for anyone to make a mistake at any time. We design the show so that there are certain margins of safety which can be used in the event of bad weather, turbulence, that type of thing. But largely we rely on the experience of the pilots flying around us, whether he be the leader, number 2, number 3, or whoever. Because from my point of view, I've got to be able to concentrate on positioning the show, not having to worry in the least about anyone else who's flying around me, if I want to be able to concentrate fully on what I'm doing. And from the other point of view, the number 2's point of view, he's got to be able to concentrate entirely on me from the formation aspect without having any fears of me misjudging heights or anything like that. So he can concentrate entirely on what it is he's trying to do, while I'm concentrating entirely on what it is that I'm trying to do. And as you've seen, it works.
And that brings the mobile sequence to a close. As they make ready to land on, you can probably already see way out there over the far horizon 2 certain shapes in the sky, to which we shall come in a moment or 2. Ian Peacock first to land in his Pitts S2A, and in his wake, Dick Manning. Thus, the 1986 Marlborough aerobatic team, and as they land, they reverse thrust again, they on the Panavia 200 Tornado.
The Alpi Eagles, the 4-man formation team from Italy.
Up for their initial loop. Notice just how close this formation is as the shadow shows the overlap. Down through their initial loop, led by Angelo Boscolo. First and last, but back into box they come, smoke comes on. Watch as they pull up once again for a loop. Down through that loop, and watch now as they again hold the formation and go through a horizontal 360 turn. A manoeuvre that gets entitled the Schneider.
The more Marlborough aerobatic team fly thousands of miles per year, transiting between displays. They also have to arrange refueling stops between shows and will frequently use small airstrips such as Compton Abbas. The aeroplanes are constantly checked, and apart from fuel, the diesel tank for the smoke system must be filled for every display.
Going from here down to Shoreham back to Booker, and then tomorrow we'd like to refuel here, a landing at about 12:30, 20 past 12, 12 past 12.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
But we won't need diesel then.
Okay. Are you going to need diesel anymore?
During the rest of the season?
Well, when you're coming in here. It's just if you could give me a bit, because
yeah,
sure. I've got to nip down the garage down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. May I take your name, sir, and number?
Just ask for Wilf at...
Okay.
Compton Abbas, just 767. It's 811767. So, and if you get on the Compton Abbas, they'll put the...
Okay.
But anything to do with fuel, if you let me know, and then I can... So it's 12:20 on
the 20th. Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we will be coming in from time to time later on in the season.
Yeah,
and I will...
that's fine.
Thanks very much.
The chance for a break between shows in a packed midsummer display timetable is rare. This time they estimate 8 minutes. For their reputation for punctuality over the display area is a matter of pride, and time on the ground is carefully calculated. The World Aerobatic Championships 1986 held at South Cerney in Gloucestershire. Rain and more rain has reduced flying to a minimum. Nigel Lamb, taking time off from displaying, is a member of the British team. There's never been a British world champion in the 12 world championships to date. The sport is dominated by Eastern Bloc countries and the USA. It's no coincidence that the present world champion, Petra Yilmaz, is a Czech.
First of all, one has to remember that we're flying precision aerobatics being judged by a panel of judges who know exactly what they're looking for, and everything is really lines and angles, degrees of rotation, things like that. So what you need is for the aeroplane to have distinct coloring so that the judges can see whether it's making a vertical line, a 45-degree line, etc. You need some sort of contrast between the top of the aeroplane and the bottom of the aeroplane to enable the judges to be absolutely certain as to the number of rolls the aeroplane has done, whether or not there's been an over-rotation during a roll, etc. On the top of the wing, we've got the Marlborough logo in white out of red, the lettering running perpendicular to the longitudinal axis of the aeroplane, so that when the aeroplane is in plan form, the Marlborough makes a right angle. The top of the tail fin we have blanked out at the present time because it decreases the amount of fin which is rotating at the back of the aeroplane during a vertical roll, and if that white wasn't there at the top of the fin, it would give the impression that the aeroplane wasn't rolling true, which would be worth probably knocking half a mark off for every roll. So that was just an idea. Hopefully it works. Underneath the wing we have a contrast to the top surface. It's just plain white with the logo in black. The special features of the extra, the main one is the wing, which is, as you can see from this position, is totally symmetrical, and it's also placed midway up the fuselage. And what this means is that when the aeroplane is in the vertical, going straight up or straight down, the rolling axis of the aeroplane is right in the middle of the fuselage. So as the aeroplane rolls, the fuselage should not cause a barreling effect, because if it did that, you'd get marks knocked off. The trailing edge of the main wing is very blunt. What that does is it creates a vortex at very high angles of attack, which assists the boundary layer to stay near the surface of the wing. So what it does is it enables us to have a very, very low stalling speed, both the right way up and the wrong way up. This device we have here on the wing is our sighting device. When we're sitting in the cockpit, going into, for example, a vertical roll, we will pull the aeroplane up into the vertical and place this tube here parallel to the horizon. And it's been attached to the wing in such a way that when this is parallel to the horizon, the aeroplane is in absolutely vertical. On almost every competition aeroplane you see at this championship, you'll find that each pilot has his own personal sighting device, because the judges, with their experience, can see whether the aeroplane is a degree or two off the line that it's supposed to be on. So it's very, very important to be not 1 or 2 degrees off your line, but exactly on them.
Cows Week. part of the Marlborough team's regular display programme. As yachtsmen prepare for yet another hard day's sailing, the team are flying at another display and forwarding to the Isle of Wight to arrive overhead at 1840. With darkness falling, the Marlborough team return home, leaving Cowes to celebrate in its traditional manner. Maintenance is a vital part of day-to-day procedure. Philip Meeson.
The pilots maintain, on a day-to-day basis anyway, the aeroplanes. Of course, on a monthly basis they go to a maintenance organisation for checks. But small things as they go around the country have to be done personally. Screws have to be tightened up and tail wheels put on and things like that. Fuel put in, oil checked. These aeroplanes are simple, but they need continuous looking at. The Pitt Special is a great aeroplane, but it's a difficult aeroplane on the ground. It's a delight in the air, but until you get it into the air, you've got to keep very quick on your feet and keep your wits about you. And in fact, training to fly a Pitt Special, I'd say there's more training on getting it off the ground and getting it back on the ground than actually anything else, apart from, of course, doing the aerobatic manoeuvres properly. As you see, it's a tailwheel aeroplane, and that means that the nose is very high. We sit well back in the fuselage, So actually seeing forward, rather just like the Spitfire, being able to see forward is very restricted. So when you taxi out, you have to weave the nose from side to side. And when you open the throttle on the takeoff run, it swings tremendously to one side. Because of the aerodynamics of the propeller, all aeroplanes do, to a lesser or greater extent. But the bigger the engine, the more the swing on takeoff. And you've got to be very quick on your feet to keep the airplane straight.
I think that the Pit Special must be the best possible formation team aeroplane for air shows, because it looks fantastic in formation. It's got that appeal, the biplane appeal for air shows. It's extremely reliable and robust. In the entire time I've been in the team, we've never missed an air display through any mechanical problem or anything like that. So it really is good for that.
The differences between flying something like this and what I'm really used to, or what I've spent the last 17 years of my life flying, it's quite interesting because the controls on this aeroplane are so light that they feel very much the same as the controls on a fighter aeroplane, which are totally hydraulic. To land this is far more difficult because A, you can't see out the front, and most fighter planes you can, and B, the suspension is much harder on this. It's affected far more by small gusts. The Jaguar we used to land at about 135 knots, the Lightning at 165 knots. This actually touched down at about 55, 60 knots. So there's a big difference in speed. And those aeroplanes, you just point at the runway. This thing, you have to fly all the way down. The funny thing I've noticed with slow aeroplanes is there's far longer for things to go wrong. With a fast aeroplane, flying 200 miles per hour approach speed, you just point it at the runway and just a little tick before you settle down. This old fella is bounced around and shaken around by the wind all the way down till you're very touched. And even when you're down, it won't stay there. You have to actually fly it on the ground till you're right down to about 25, 30 miles per hour before you're happy. That's the big difference. Performance-wise, aeroplanes are very much the same once you're airborne. A Lightning doing Mach 2 at 30,000 feet feels a lot slower than a Pitts doing 140 miles per hour at 50 feet. The rudders in this aeroplane are very effective and almost the prime control, whereas in fighters you hardly use the rudders, you use them for taxiing, and of course the brakes are always attached to them, and very slightly perhaps in slow speed combat. Whereas this, the rudders, we're using them the whole time and they're very effective and make a lot of difference. Also in the formation flying, when we try and hold close together, two together, in fighters you use roll a lot for moving in and out. Whereas in this, because it's display flying, we're trying to keep the wings level, we use the rudder as a station keeper and for moving in and out. And I found that one of the most difficult things of changing from fighters to this, getting my rudder control right.
Bognor Regis, the International Birdman Rally, one of the many charity events the Marlborough Aerobatic Team displays at each year.
there he goes, there he goes. And he touched the water. Just reading your information, as soon as any part of the glider or any part of the pilot touches the water, that's where the distance has to be calculated from.
Strangely enough, competitors flock from far and wide to compete in this annual event, some serious.
There he goes, there he goes, this is the man to watch. Oh! He's getting a speed, and there he goes.
And some not quite so serious. Serious or not, the pilot with the furthest flight collects £2,000. This aspiring Pitts pilot was fully prepared for his flight, even down to his duty-free allowance.
Hey! Lost your wings. Yahoo! Somebody say them the bug right there. There he goes. There he goes, there he goes, there he goes, he's going, and he's touched the water.
We can now see why dinosaurs are extinct, and why the Marlborough team are so thorough in their pilot training.
There he goes.
After their display, the genuine Pitts make a last fly past and wave to a packed coastline. Meanwhile, back at the World Aerobatic Championships at South Cerney, the competition is progressing slowly due to the continuing poor weather.
Positive pull-up, vertical roll.
The line judges monitor the competition maneuvers overhead and any infringements of the aerobatic box. They in turn report to the international panel of judges.
I unfortunately made a mistake about just over halfway through the program on a very simple figure. I actually made a mistake and put in the wrong figure at that point, realized I was making a mistake and had to sort myself out. So I will have had about 200 penalty points for doing that, which is very unfortunate. So I think that'll affect my overall position quite a lot. So I'm not very happy at the moment. On the other hand, a lot of people are making mistakes. There are lots of really good guys up there who are actually making mistakes on the particular figure that their team chose, which is pleasing for me to see. And like all the programs, the marks mean nothing until they've gone through the computer, been adjusted for the various judging discrepancies and things, and you can never tell how you've done until you compare what marks you got with everybody else's marks. So I'm still hoping that I wouldn't have done too badly in program 3. But it's a big disappointment to have trained for so long, so hard, and then make a mistake when the pressure is very high, make a very small mistake which actually costs an awful lot of marks. Unfortunately, the competition won't be completed in its entirety because today is the last day. As you can see, the remainder of program 3 has been flown in the middle of the air show. The competition has been beset by fairly bad weather, and there were lots of delays and frustrations, and I hadn't flown for 6 days when I flew program 2, which is just the luck of the draw. That's the way it goes. I would have hoped to do better, but I didn't make any zeros, didn't make any big mistakes. I got fairly good marks, but obviously 17 guys got better marks.
And now coming in from your left with a slow coming on for the Diamond 9 game.
The world famous red arrows.
two aircraft detach themselves from the center of the diamond line to build what we call the pivot arrow. Putting up now for the one last roll. Previously flown Harriers, started on board. We've also sent into the Royal Navy to fly Sea Harriers of HMS Illustrious as they slip back to form the Concord formation. The two aircraft at the back, they'll pull up and watch the full formation change.
My first World Championship is going to be a competition which hasn't actually really been finished because we didn't fly all 4 programs. Big disappointment, but that's the end of competition flying for this year for me, I think. Back to the grindstone next week, organising the tour which we're doing in the Far East with the pit specials in October, November, and getting back into display flying, doing some displays with the extra and also on the pit specials. Possibility of the 1987 British Aerobatic Championships being held in October this year. So if that's the case, then I'll do some more training to enter that. And of course I would hope to try and win it anyway. That'll be my 3rd competition.
And in October, Nigel Lamb did indeed become the British aerobatic champion in only his 3rd ever aerobatic competition.
Coming in towards each other. And they continue the turn to start once more in front of you to complete the horizontal carousel. The shores are coming towards us for horizontal break for the Dixon break.
Another charity event, this time on the Isle of Wight, and the team have brought an enthusiastic passenger and a Fleet Street photographer.
Just display team?
Yeah, that's a Marlborough aerobatic team, yeah.
That's it. Like done as day's graft already.
Did you enjoy that then?
Yeah.
There's right there on the...
Prior to their display, Ian Peacock and Dick Manning discussed their display location.
Track pattern, as indicated on the map here.
Yep.
And so there's our area, the hatch bit, and we'll use the 2 extreme corners as our display axis. And as aiming points, we'll use the edge of this forest area here.
Okay.
And that crossroads there.
Okay.
But we'll have about 3 minutes overhead to assess the situation. Last minute detail brief.
Right.
Okay, happy?
Good. Yeah.
Good. We'll get airborne. It takes less than 5 minutes to get there. So we'll get airborne just before 5 to 3.
The team are asked to do a lot of aerial photography with the press. And on one such occasion, during the transit to the annual Leicester Air Show, the team utilised the opportunity to pose for publicity photographs, formating on the camera aircraft flown by Philip Meeson. It's a rare occurrence when all 4 team members attend the same air show and the team arrive over Leicester in formation. Nigel Lamb, putting the extra through its paces for the first time since the World Aerobatic Championships.
Won the British Championships, finishing first, and that was his 5th British Aerobatic Championship title. And Nigel Lamb, who's flying now. Nigel showing us a very effective instructor turn there. Well, you may be wondering how Nigel acquired that. Now Zimbabwe, and there he spent 6 years in what was the Rhodesian Air Force. He started flying on the piston provost and then the Vampire jet trainer. And in fact it was while flying the Vampire that he was lucky enough to survive a forced landing out in the bush when his engine failed. Fortunately he recovered from that incident and went on to too many because we were keeping the aircraft ready, first of all, for the British Championships in May.
of the three aircraft together. They're going to be behind that. Okay, couldn't see them. After the background. But I'm sure thanking them with a few odd lights on the ground here. To measure the speed direction. And indeed this one too, rolling now, the FD5A. You'll notice a change in takeoff direction, choice of runway. Well, as the Lancaster departs, we turn the clock further back, the first throttle wall, and the cockpit is on. 160 degrees a second, and taking around 6G in this sequence. Now, while of course that's sustained for just relatively short periods, unlike the military aircraft one sees, lots of sideways there on landing. No G-suit worn in these manoeuvres.
Well,
Clear.
Philip Meeson, having landed for a brief look around the collection, departs for his next display. Having obtained special permission to fly low over the centre of London, the Extra provides the climax to the Thames Day festivities. Although restricted by regulations to what the Marlborough team would call basic manoeuvres, the sight of a single-seat aerobatic aircraft low over central London is still a thrilling spectacle. Peter McNamara, the Marlborough team commentator.
Unipart RF4 display. The pace changes now as we give you the all-action Marlborough aerobatic display for 1986. Diving towards us from 2,000 feet at over 200 miles an hour. And as the smoke goes on, they pull up into the clover leaf, looking very much like a loop. But at the top of the manoeuvre, the formation rolls so that they now start flying down parallel to the runway. And there they go. Ian Peacock to our left and Dick Manning to our right. Starting with a vertical roll and synchronized stall turn. Climbing vertically until the airspeed falls away and each aircraft is left almost hanging on its propeller. Now this is a very good one for those of you with cameras as they fly in towards each other at a cruising speed of over 300 miles an hour to the opposition loop. Passing each other with instincts to spare, in a maneuver that takes great skill and daring. Vertically rolling, holding the aircraft over at the top. Then rolling to our left to present a pair of synchronized loops. And there, pulling hard into the maneuver, keeping the aircraft straight with rudder, easing up the back pressure on the control column as the airspeed slackens off at the top of the maneuver, and pulling hard once again and keeping straight with rudder on the way down. Well, if you thought that opposition loop was something, we've got two more, even more spectacular opposition maneuvers. The next one coming up, the exciting knife-edge crossover. As they fly in towards each other, then just as they pass, roll on their side onto knife edge and pass canopy to canopy, perimeter of each other. Hanging almost motionless at the top of the stall turn there, before flying back into the centre for the third and most exciting of the opposition passes. The dramatic opposition flick roll. Makes his own dramatic entrance to demonstrate that individual brand of solo aerobatic flying, which has made him British aerobatic champion for 1986 for the 5th time. Specifically built for unlimited aerobatics, as he pulls up what looks like a loop, but at the top it's 2 flick rolls, in a maneuver known as a double avalanche. The flick roll is a maneuver which, rather extra performs better than any other aircraft flying today. In the flick roll, the aircraft is rotating at well over 300 degrees a second, and you really have to have your wits about you to make sure that you come out flying in the same direction as you enter the maneuver. There how the Philip Mason his skills to demonstrate an aircraft. He was tested during his 5 years in the Royal Air Force, which he left in the early 70s. Since then, he has concentrated on aerobatic flying, and it shows. And he's been flying under Marlborough since 1978. A variety of Pitts aircraft, and this year for the first time in the Marlborough Extra 230. This aircraft, whose registration is PMNL, he shares with his fellow Marlborough aerobatic team member, Nigel Lamb, and both of them did very creditably in the British Aerobatic Championships in March of this year, Philip Mason finishing in 1st place, and Nigel Lamb in only a few hundred points behind him out of several thousand in 2nd position, and that in Nigel Lamb's 1st fully fledged competition. A very creditable effort for both pilots. Now Philip exits over the tower and watch to your right and left as we see Red 1 and Red 2 preparing to rejoin in formation for the 3rd part of the Marlborough display this afternoon. So rolling in at high speed for a head-on pass, pull up and join. Vertical rolling to ensure the Marlborough puts in plan view. Then pulling back over the top, the formation will fly away from us to rejoin in formation. So a few words about the formation leader this afternoon, Ian Peacock. This is his 3rd year with the Marlborough aerobatic team, and indeed not only his final year, but his final display. He'll be going back to Zimbabwe at the end of this week, having spent 3 very enjoyable years with the Marlborough Aerobatic team. And it's here we now see, rolling inverted for the Marlborough Aerobatic team's Mirror Formation Fly Pass, each aircraft acting as a mirror image of the other. And demonstrating the Marlborough kit's amazing capabilities to fly equally well upside down, as it does the right way up. Well, Ian's flying career started off on the piston provost, and he's now leading that formation stall turn, full left rudder, close the throttles, and diving back down through the smoke trails. Now the spectacular finale, so cameras ready.